Hi, Ratika.
Hi, Wilfred, how are you?
I'm fine. Hi.
Perfect. I am also connected, so this is great. I'll just go on.
Yeah, sorry for the background noise. So I'm working from home today, and then the lights went out, so I had to go to a restaurant, and they're playing super loud music, but I've asked them to turn it down from 12. So hopefully they will.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Don't worry. It's not super loud, so not to worry at all. So in terms of
Okay.
in terms of when we get started, we'll just give people a bit of time to come in, and then
Yeah.
will you make the introduction, or shall I just get started?
I'll make the introduction, and then you can introduce your team based on who will be on the call, and then you can pick it up from there. And then
Okay,
I'll tell
fine, perfect. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so do you have anyone in the chat who's monitoring questions
Yes.
from your side, or I can do that? Okay, great.
Yeah, so we got, yeah.
Sorry?
I was just going to say, yep, so the team members are joining, and we have people in the chat who will monitor questions, which is perfect. And then so I'll just do like housekeeping and stuff at the beginning. And like people are joining, but I won't let them in just yet. I'll leave them in the waiting room. But yeah, anything else that we need to know, or?
No, not really. I think everything was, I shared, the slides are good. I think, yeah, so I think let's just throw in.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. And I know most people, most people were more excited to go to the next session, the investing one. But I told them they need to attend this one as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and in my introduction, I'll say like this is going to be super basic, but it's no harm to hear it again. And of course, the next session is more actionable insights on what is investment, what you should be thinking about doing, and things. So I'll prime it as well, so that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. All right, brilliant. I'm just gonna, because I can see people are joining and they're in the waiting room. How many people are we expecting?
I invited around 60, so half of that, 30. If I get 30, I'll be so happy.
Fine. Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah. No, brilliant. Okay, that's fine. What's the time? 12. Okay, so I will start everybody coming in, and then we'll just hold.
Okay, no worries. Hi guys, thank you so much for being on time. I'll just have a few more minutes to let people join. Yes, you can test your audio.
Hello.
And the camera ready if you want to. No pressure.
Please play some music then.
Okay, let's try. Any specific request, Oscar?
Rumba.
Rumba. Oh my goodness, so is Monica. Monica is the expert.
Hat the band.
You can hear it.
Yeah.
It's like you're outside the party. It sounds like you are on the other fence of the party.
Wilfrida, we can't hear it.
Hello? Adam, I've heard you said you can't hear. Oh, Tuzine is here. Please play something.
I play for you guys something.
Yes.
Not tech savvy.
Something. Music.
Hi, Adams is here and he couldn't play for you something.
Imagine, I'm here struggling with technology like an old person. No offense to the old people in the call.
Direct shots.
There's no old person
Oscar is
here.
about to start. Oscar is about to start.
Umetuliza tu. That's better now.
What?
That's Rasta.
Yes.
But when you put that music and the topic of discussion, it's making me sorrowful.
No, we are praying for the money to increase.
Wilfrida, you remember how this song saved us?
Maybe it should have been tupa mikono juu weka shida chini.
Yes.
Daniel. Oh, Victor.
Yes, Oscar.
These songs are played in the country buses.
Victor, umevaa shati. Oh, nice. Sam, uko kwa vest, uko na vest, eh?
Katia, you will come back from
Yes,
here you
hapo
are.
niko.
Yes, mi niko.
Mbato unakaa tax collector.
The present teacher.
Bati tuma salamu. Tuma salamu.
Nimesalimika.
But usikubali hiyo hate.
Yeah.
Do not accept it.
Just what? Unasikia vile watu wanaongeanga vibaya.
Victor, did you get my receipt?
Yes, I got them.
Umepata?
Yes, I got them, Monica. Hey, unaniuliza Jumatatu.
Hata wazi nitumia text.
Ndio tutaongea baadaye.
I'm waiting for unless someone lets me in.
Great. I think we have a good number now and we can start. So, Tuzinda, thank you. I think it will be our intermission. In case you feel like we need an icebreaker, you can drop a beat. Please drop sounds when certain information is passed.
Don't be worried.
Yes.
I have a playlist for you.
Thank you so much for making time this just before lunch and on a Friday. On call, I have Rashika. You can see, I think she's on my left. Yes, she's on my left of my screen. She's from the Ndovu team, and they'll be taking us through the financial. We have 2 sessions. So today is the basic one, where we get to just remind ourselves about the basics about personal financial planning. And then next week, we'll get to cover more about investing. So without any further delay, for once, I'll have it that someone else doing the talking. I'll hand it over to Rashika. Thank you.
Quantity?
21. Kwa nini nakuitisha yangu haijaniitisha?
Kwa laptop.
Rose.
In Ross.
Sorry.
You're on mute, Rathika.
Oh, technology 101. Yeah, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today. Like Wilfrida said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ndovu. And Ndovu is a micro financing platform that provides education, easy access to the everyday Kenyan in order to help them make more of the money they have today. I'm Kenyan born and raised, so it was really nice hearing Swahili. I won't try my Swahili because it's very basic, and the guy and my team always laugh at me when I say things in Swahili. But I'm looking to improve it. And so, born and raised, I spent 15 years working abroad, helping clients understand how best to take the money they have today and manage it in the right way so that they can continue to meet their financial goals in the future. So like Wilfrida said, today is very basic, and some of you may have heard of some of the things I'm going to cover, but it's always good to hear it again because it reminds you of the good things that you should be doing when it comes to managing your money. There's a famous saying in our team. We say that we work hard for money, and now money should be working hard for us. And I think that's what we're going to learn today. It's a super informal session. Feel free to unmute your mic and ask any questions. My team is also on the call. They'll be fielding any questions in the chat, but it's super informal. So just unmute. You guys seem like a really fun bunch of people, and very friendly. So it's very likely I'll be hearing your voices. So with further ado, let's get started. So today what we're going to cover is very basic things like how should someone think about savings? What are your assets and liabilities, and how you can document them to have a better understanding of your financial position, how to set financial goals, and prioritize them. What is the power of compounding and what it means to beat inflation? That's a little bit more complex, but I'll go through it. The benefits of investing, and then a slight introduction. And then at the next week's session, that will be more actionable insights on how to invest your money. So we'll go through different types of investments, the benefits, the challenges with each of the investments, and then really a step-by-step guide of how to invest. So just as a primer, so I want you guys to meet Njeri. So Njeri is just like you and I. She's a millennial. She works super hard. She lives in the city, but she's originally from the outskirts. And she's now become a modern Kenyan who is now in touch with global trends, has a smartphone, likes to keep up to date with Euro sports, and understands, that she can watch TV on Netflix. Her main key goals is getting married, buying her dream or building her dream house, traveling, and her average income that she earns on a monthly is around 30,000 shillings. And there's this big misconception that you can't start saving when you have small amount of money, but the reality is that it's about making sure that we save regularly and often, but using small amounts. And even if that means we're saving 300 shillings a month, that is something, and it's a starting point. So what is a financial plan? I think like every other goal in our life, when we go to school, we have an education plan. When we start working, we have project plans that we must follow. A financial plan is just simply an approach that helps you achieve your short-term financial goals and long-term financial goals. So what are these financial goals? Before we talk about what these can be and the difference between short-term and long-term, it's very important for all of us to understand how much are we worth today. And knowing how much we're worth today is known as your net worth. And in order for us to understand what we're worth today, we need to know what are the things in our savings life that are known as assets. So something that contribute positively to your financial situation. So this is cash in the bank, savings you might have within Ndovu. Maybe you've bought some land, or you've inherited some land, or you have an apartment that is on rent that's paying you some money. It's things like investing in a money market fund, unit trusts, they're known as unit trusts, there's stocks, and also insurance policies. So these are things that should anything happen to you, they would contribute positively. You can rely on these assets to help you out should anything go wrong. And that always means that the more of you have of assets, the higher your net worth will be. And then Njeri has things called liabilities. Now these are, that the official name is liabilities, but liabilities simply mean that you owe someone else money. And so, for example, say you're looking to build a house and you went to the bank and you got a construction loan. That's a liability because you owe the bank some money. Same with the MFI and SACCO loan. You owe the SACCO some money because you borrowed it from them. And things like personal app loans, mobile money loans, sport betting, and also overspending. So here, what I mean by overspending is that sometimes we don't, because we're not monitoring our expenses, we are unaware of what these overspending elements are. And we can really, if we take a deeper look at our daily and monthly spending habits, we can control the overspending that we can then save and invest to really help us reach our financial goals. So just to summarize, how much we're worth today means that if we have more assets than liabilities, then we're in a good financial position. And if we have more liabilities than assets, not to worry, we'll figure it out and we'll get you on track. But the idea is always to make sure we're saving and building so we can add to the assets pile of how much we're worth financially. So what's really important when it comes to a financial plan is that we all need to understand what are our spending habits. So Njeri, in this example, the way she understood how much she's spending on everything was over a 3-month period, she manually wrote down all her expenditure. So, you know, if you're spending on M-Pesa or your bank account, they give you a statement. So that's one way to look at it. And at the end of each month, she was tallying how much she's spending. And what she was surprised to find was that she did not know that she was spending a little bit more on transport than she had thought in terms of how much she's earning. So this is one key takeaway I would recommend everyone to do. It sounds very basic, but it's one of the key things you can do to really understand what am I spending my money on, is go away over a 3-month period. Every month, just write down what you've been spending and then put it into these buckets, which is, you know, how much am I spending on rent, utilities, transport, food, savings, and others. Just so you as an individual know, okay, this is how much money I'm spending on transport. And if I can save a little bit more money on transport, it can go into my savings and set me up for the future. And the reason I say that is because every shilling counts. Sorry, I'm just going to let someone else in. Perfect. Okay. And the reason I say every shilling counts, let's take some examples. So when we as humans, when we're making a big purchase, so we're buying something that has a high value, we'll think about it 6-7 times on average. But when it's a small expense, we don't think about it. It's like part and parcel of our every day. So in this example, I said Njeri likes to watch the Euro sports. She's a big sports gambling person. And, you know, the reality about sports betting is that it's not about luck and it's about probability. And the probability is always in the favor of the sports betting company. Otherwise, they would never have this business, right? So there's some big sports companies that on average, they take 80% winnings and they give back to their customers 20%. And they've got a lot of science and consumer behavior psychology to get them to make people to come back and bet because you think you're going to win. But the reality is that the house always wins, and whether that's gambling more generally or betting on sports. Now, Njeri has a sports habit, and every single day she will go onto the app and she'll spend 200 shillings betting. And it's very likely that out of those 200 shilling bets she makes every day, she probably wins once a month. But she's still out of her pocket because she has not won as much as 200 shillings if you were playing that in a month. But this small habit of actually spending 200 shillings every single day, if you were to add it all together, over 30 years is actually a 2.16 million shilling habit. So the fact that we don't focus on the small expenditure, if you look at it over a long-term period, it can add to a lot of money that can help you achieve your goal for sending your children to a better school, buying that house that you want, investing in a business. So don't think that 200 shillings is just 200 shillings. Think of it more as a long-term habit. Another example is that Jerry lives in a house and she pays, let's say, rent of 20,000. This is just an example. But she knows that she eventually wants to buy a house. So what she can do is move in with a friend or family to save a bit of money, but she can take out a construction loan that is 12,000 shillings a month. And in the meantime, whilst her house is being built, she's living with a friend. So she's saving 8,000 shillings for that period. And then when she moves into her house, she's then saving the full 20,000 shillings because she's no longer paying rent because she's built or bought this house that is hers. Now, if you look at that over a 30-year period, that's north of 3 million shillings that she saves. And if you made these small changes, just these two changes, if you were to add them together, you'd be saving somewhere around 5.5 million in 30 years' time. And if you were to invest that money on top of that, that 5.5 million would be north of 12 million shillings over a 30-year period, probably even higher. I haven't done the maths, but And so the key thing I would like you to take away from here is when you do your monthly reconciliation of how much you're spending on rent, on utilities, transports, food, look for the small expenses that you don't think add up and really try and save those. So how do we set and prioritize goals? Before we get into setting, these are the key things that you should be doing when it comes to your money. This is the financial basics of rules of thumbs that you should be doing when it comes to money. So we all earn a salary. Your salary equates to 100% of your salary. From that, you're spending on things like rent, food, transport, electricity, water. From that 100 shillings, 100% of your earnings, you should be looking to save at least 25% of your income. When you do your accounting, you want to see today, do you save 25% of your income? And if you don't, I would recommend when you get your salary, you calculate what 25% is and you put it in a savings account or reinvest it. I'll talk to you about it a bit later. But the goal is to get your savings income of 25%. Now, from time to time, there might be an emergency, so you might not be able to save 25%. But if you set this as a base line, at least 6 out of 12 months, you'll be saving 25%. Now, when it comes to your savings portfolio, of that 25%, we need to make sure that we have an emergency fund or a safety net. And this is normally 5% of your savings portfolio. And what the safety net and emergency fund does for you is that, COVID has taught us life can be unpredictable. No one could have predicted COVID. And I know some friends and family who've actually lost jobs. They've had some additional expenses because of COVID, hospital bills, etc. Having this emergency fund allows you to make sure that for at least a runway of 6 to 9 months, you can afford, you can manage your life should something like losing your job happen. And then from that savings portfolio, there's another portfolio known as opportunistic portfolio, which should be about 20%. Now, this is a type of portfolio that is like short-term. Your family member needs a loan, you give them a loan from this portfolio. Your family member, or you have really recently learned about crypto and you want to invest in crypto. It's super high risk, so you don't want to put all your savings in it, even though it might seem really attractive. And I've been speaking to a few Kenyans and some of them have 100% of their portfolio in crypto, which is crazy coming from a financial perspective. I have a bit of crypto, but again, it's on speculation. I have no knowledge, even though I'm a financial professional who has 15 years of experience. And again, the reason you have this opportunistic is that so you can maybe lend some money to a friend or somebody starting a business, you want to get involved, and that's your opportunistic portfolio. But the key portfolio you need to focus on is your long-term portfolio, which is the majority of your savings. It's 75%. And this is a low risk. So there's when it comes to investing, there's different types of risks. Low risk medium risk, and high risk. But your long-term portfolio is a portfolio that we like to have anywhere between, depending on your appetite, but you're building wealth over the long term. So you're not taking crazy decisions as buying crypto or investing in a livestock project that is a scam. You're really looking at long-term safe instruments to actually grow this part of your portfolio. Another rule of thumb is that when we were at school, even here, even in the West, in the world, we're not taught about financials. And the reality is that a lot of us are taught to actually...
Yeah.
Okay. Let me put him on mute. There we go. We're not taught, we're just taught that you should save. Now, this is a really big myth. Savings is not enough because of this thing called inflation. So in simple terms, what inflation means is that the 1,000 bob we have today in 2021 will buy us 5 bananas when we go to the supermarket. But if we were to take the same 1,000 shillings in 2022 and we went to the supermarket, it would buy us 4 bananas. And simply what inflation does is that the money you have today is losing value because of this thing called inflation. And I hope I put that very easily, but essentially saving is not enough, and you need to be investing your money so that you can make sure your savings are growing and out-competing inflation. The average inflation rate in Kenya is 5%. So if we had 1,000 bob today, in exact date today, we'd have 1,000 bob in our savings account. But then in the same day, 2021, we would have that 1,000 bob would be 995 shillings because of this thing called inflation. So the key, another financial tip is that saving is not enough. It's a step towards building your financial wealth, creating wealth, but you need to also be thinking about investing. And another key thing about when it comes to savings and investing is that if you start at an earlier age, getting to your financial goals is much easier, and time it works in your favor because of this thing called compounding. So I'll take an example, and Jerry wants to retire at the age of 65, and she would like to have 10 million shillings in her savings, her investment portfolio, or her net worth, so that she can live comfortably for another 20 years. Again, these numbers are indicative. It's just for example purposes, and I can take you through how you do the right calculation. But if she started saving at the age of 25, she would need 400 shillings a month that she would save and invest to get to her goal of having 10 million shillings when she's 65. If she started at 35, she would have to save 12,000 shillings a month. If she started at 45, 36,000 shillings a month. And then if she started at 55, she'd need 130,000 shillings a month to get to her 10 million goal. Now, the reason you need less money when you start earlier is because when you invest your money earns interest. And then that interest next month earns more interest. And then that interest that you've earned over 2 months then earns more interest. And this is known as compounding effect. And it's actually very magical. I started investing at the age of 23. At 25. And I look at my portfolio today and I said, I wish I started investing at the age of 21. That's when I started working officially. I had graduated. And that small difference makes a huge, huge difference in how much you can make your money work for you in order to get to your goals. So the key thing to take away from here, it's not about how much you have. Even if you're saving small amounts of money, like 200, 300, 500 shillings a month, it really in the long term adds up and gives you financial freedom, which is where we all want to be. We want to retire without any pressure. We want to live a happy life, pay for our children's education. So in terms of setting financial goals, we all have common goals such as, owning this beautiful house, retiring stress-free, buying a shiny car, or your kids' education. So let me just break down what are short-term goals and long-term goals. Short-term goals are things that you want to achieve in a period of 1 to 2 years. And these are things like traveling. Maybe you want to buy a car. you would like to, you've seen this really nice piece of jewelry. As a woman, you might want that. And those are short-term goals, and you can achieve them very quickly. They're smaller amounts of value in 1 to 2 years. And then you have your long-term goals, which are things like kids' education, retirement, and your dream house. Because you have to, there are slightly larger amounts that you need for those goals, and you want to start saving a bit earlier, and you're saving anywhere between 4 to like 25 years, depending on what your goals are. So for example, if we look at retirement goals, so Njeri today her needs are 300,000 shillings a month. So she's done her calculations. She understands that her expenses are probably 150,000 shillings a month, but she wants to have at least the double that, so she can maybe go on holiday, give her grandchildren presents, invest in a friend's business, etc. when it comes to retirement. And she knows that she's going to retire in when she retires, she's going to live for 25 years. You know, with medicine where it is today, we are likely to stay alive much longer. So, you know, we know that we need to have we'll be living for 25 years, and our monthly expense is 300,000 shillings. So if we were to compound that and understand how much money we will need before we retire, let's say we retire at 67, before retirement age was about 63, but I think because we're living longer, healthier, that's gone up. We would need 90 million shillings at the time we retire. And so that's an example of a long-term goal. It's a lot of money. But if you were to break that down, and if you remember the example before, if you were to just work backwards and say, okay, if I needed this much money, break it down by the number of years of how much you would need to save, break it down with how much that is per month. And then, as I said before, we're not only saving, we're investing. So you don't need to physically save 90 million shillings. You simply have to save a lot less, provided you're investing it in your long-term portfolio and you're investing responsibly. And we'll cover some of that in the next session. But the key thing is, look, we all have these big wants. Even I do, we all do. We want to have that, all the goals that we want to have. We want to achieve financial freedom. But the reality is that none of us save enough to have everything we want in life. So it's important for us to have to prioritize through the goals to say, okay, what are the key important goals? So for example, if you have children, your goal would probably be sending them to university first and saving for their education, followed by your retirement goals, just as an example. But of course, this varies in terms of prioritizing your goal. But the key thing that you need to do when it comes to, you pick your 2 or 3 goals that you want to achieve, short term, medium term, long term, and then you have to pay off your debt. So debt are things like mobile loans. In Kenya, Dean, who's on the call this morning, gave me some data, and I always get shocked by it. But the average lending app in Kenya charges you an interest rate of 110% to over 1,000%. Now that just blows my mind, right? No one in their right mind, if you knew how much that could be for compounding, would take the money. But unfortunately, there are times where we need loans. If you take that as a high interest bank loan, the numbers range from 21% and they vary around there. That is really expensive money, because the reality is that if we were to invest our money, a decent amount of return in investing your money is earning anywhere around 8 to 18%, and that's in Kenya shillings. And you can get some really good investments that can give you that. But if you have loans, if you're earning interest and investments on money you've saved, but you're paying so much high interest on your loans, the key thing to do is pay off this really expensive money. So, you know, it doesn't mean you have to pay all of it off, but, you know, make a plan. So say you're saving, you have a loan of 1,000 shillings. It's small. We have a loan of 1,000 shillings, but it's costing me 110% in interest. I'm saving 200 shillings a month. I would put 150 towards paying off the debt, and the other 50 I would put in my emergency fund. It's just an example. They're small numbers, but of course you adjust it as you know, you understand your financial portfolio better. Now, once you've paid off these really, really expensive loans, you then start building your emergency fund. So I touched upon this a bit earlier. You know, the idea is that if something happened to you or you were unable to work, you have enough money to cover your expenses for about 6 to 9 months. Again, if you had a full-time job, you might be spending 30,000 shillings a month, but when you don't have a job, you're also quite frugal. So you might only need 18,000 shillings, for example. Of that money, 1 to 2%, 1 to 2 months of that should be held in a bank account. This is because you want it to be liquid. Should you have an emergency, you have at least 1 to 2 months of money in a bank account. And thereafter, the remaining of the money, you should invest in a low risk liquid investment. And this is like a unit trust as a money market fund, and you're earning 8% on it. And that would be the right way to build your emergency fund. I'm going to pause there and see if we have any questions in the chat. Here we go. And if you want to unmute yourself and ask any questions, feel free. Okay, I think we're all good for now.
No, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So my question is, I know you've said like start off with the, let's say the mobile debt and the smaller debts, but what if you have one, for example, health loans, student loans? So how do you factor in that, paying off that as you continue with your savings? Because at times, paying off your student loan can take you close to even 5 years.
Yes.
So does it mean, how do you exactly set that up?
So I think the most important thing to think about is really write down, okay, I have a money mobile loan, for example, and it's charging me 7%. And then I have my school education loan that's charging me 3%. Because if you look at it in terms of the cost of the loan, the money mobile loan is more expensive than the student debt. So from a prioritization perspective, I would recommend paying off the money mobile loan first because it's more expensive. So for every 1,000 bob that you've borrowed, because it's at 7%, you have to pay 7 shillings every single year on top of that. Whereas with the student loan, it is still cheaper, but it's still a loan. So not all debt is bad debt, for example. Not all loans are bad loans, provided they're not charging you high amounts of interest. So if your student loan is very low and it's charging you anywhere between, and I don't know if anyone knows what the current rate of the student loan is, unmute or just put it in the chat. But if it's quite low, it's okay to have that debt and pay it off over time, but you have to have a plan. But so that the key thing when it comes to deciding which loan to pay off, you must pay off the most expensive loan. And the most expensive loan is the loan that charges you the most amount of interest. And then if you have a loan that's a little bit cheaper, it's okay to have that loan because you're paying it off slowly. So for example, Ominde in the chat said that, okay, it can be 4%. That loan is okay to have and pay over a long period of time. Because that is less than inflation, which is on average 5%. And when you compare it to money mobile loans and other lending apps, it's significantly lower. So it's actually okay to have some sort of debt on your books, provided the interest rate is super low. So this student education, I would recommend paying it off slowly. There's no need to put too much money to pay it off early, because if you were to invest the money that you were looking to pay your student loan with, you can earn more than 4%. And that means that with the interest that you're earning, you can pay your student loan off a little bit. So just to repeat that again, just so that I'm clear, is that because the interest rate on the student loan is much lower, and if you were to invest that money, you can earn anywhere between 8 as a baseline 8%, and you're paying 4% for your student loan, you don't want to be in a hurry to pay it all off, because you can invest that money and earn more money on it. I hope that's clear.
There's a question from Oscar in the chats. Which investment is currently earning over 11% interest?
Yeah, so there are different types of investments. So to begin with, some money market funds, some of them earn from 8 to 12%. So money market funds simply, they're managed by fund managers like Old Mutual, Britam, ICA Lion, and they're professionals who will take your money and they'll put it into fixed deposits. They'll buy treasury bonds, treasury bills. These are government paper, and they can give you anywhere between 8 to 12%. And then we also have the government of Kenya, who issues government bonds. And again, there are different types of bonds, but they could be an infrastructure bond or a treasury bond, and they give you anywhere between 10% or north. And there's some benefits of investing in government bonds. Now, government bonds aren't available to the day-to-day individual investor like you and I. They're normally given to institutions, so big banks and so brokers, etc. But on Ndovu, what we've done is we democratize access to government bonds so that you could put 3,000 shillings towards buying a bit of a government bond that then gives you 12 to 18%, well, 12 to not 18, 12 to 14%, depending on where we are in the market and interest rates. And the next session, we'll talk a little bit more about what other investments you have that can earn more than 12%, and what other regions you can invest in. And we will go more into that into the next session. Okay. Right, there's no other questions, so I'll proceed. So how do you implement your financial plan? So you guys have learned about, okay, how do I understand what my finances are? What I need to do to begin with to make sure that I'm prioritizing my financial goals. But the question is, how do you implement it? So from your financial goals, I would recommend to pick one goal and break it down. So say, okay, if I want to retire, or if I want to save for my children's education, when they turn 18, let's say they're 3 years of age today, their university fees is going to be X. You can simply go online, Google it, and you'll say, okay, I will need this much money. And then you would divide it by the number of years you have and the number of months, so you know how much you need to save. And the thing is, that's again going back, saving is one step, but if you invest it, you need less money. But it's good to use it as a baseline, because if you're saving more, then you're earning more interest on your investment because you're investing it, so you will also have some money left behind. And that's how I would pick one goal, go to market, understand what the goal amount, how much money you need to achieve that goal in 10 years time, 4 years time, whatever it might be, and work backwards to understand how much you need to save today. And then, like I said, saving is not enough. We must think about investing responsibly. You would then pick a tool that works. So Ndovu, really, the whole idea for Ndovu is to help you invest responsibly, and I'll introduce us a little bit later. But you need to find an investment tool, whether that you're using a fund manager where you're investing through a unit trust, saving on Mshwari, for example, but you need to pick a tool where you're earning a bit of interest. And then you need to understand, okay, based on the type of goals I have, how quickly do I need to get there, and how much risk should I run in your portfolio? Now, the everyday person doesn't really know. And what Ndovu does is, on the platform, it helps you. We ask you a series of questions to understand what is your ability to take risk. And these questions are more loosely based around your lifestyle, how much you're saving, how long you can, how is your reaction, say if you lost a bit of money. And taking all of those factors together, our algorithms will say, okay, this is your financial goal. If you saved this much money every single month, and you held it for 5 years, you would get to your financial goal. So we tell you what to hold and invest in, because a lot of people just don't know where to get started, and it can get quite complicated. So we help you do that, but if you want to do that offline, you can also go onto the internet and Google a few things. But the idea about implementing your plan is making it regular. Whether you're saving regularly, and you've done an automatic, direct debit from your bank account. So, if you're getting your salary and you want to save 25%, it needs to be automatically moved. Or the tedious way is to remind yourself every day at payday to move your savings immediately. And this is the behavior you need to build, because it accumulates very quickly if you just start this behavior early. Okay, so we've talked about things that are in our control and financial planning and how we get started. But the real thing is that sometimes life can be predictable, and COVID has definitely shown that. So we always need to have a plan B. And the plan B really is to help make sure your loved ones are looked after should anything happen to you. And there are 3 easy steps that you can do to make sure that happens. So firstly, I feel like writing a will, because there's so much lawyer wording and stuff, it seems like it's very complicated. But if you just go onto the internet and you Google will template, You download the template. It simply is a document that says, okay, in the event that I pass or something happens to me, I would like so-and-so to have the following assets. So assets are the things that we own that have value that I mentioned earlier on. This car will go to my wife, this land goes to my son, and etc. Writing a will is super simple. A lot of us don't do it. I think in the Kenyan and Indian culture, when you write a will, you're accepting death, but it's just the smart thing to do. We have to change our behavior and move forward. It's about making sure we protect our loved ones. If you'd like, actually, Wilfrida, after this, I will send just a template of a will just so that people have it and you can use it. And you would just get it signed by another individual, or a lawyer is preferred. And again, they don't charge you a lot of money nowadays to do it. It's a super easy exercise. So that's the will. So should anything happen to you, your family knows who's getting what. The second thing is a lasting power of attorney. Say something happens to you and you need to make sure that somebody, a dear friend of yours, colleague, teacher, or somebody has your lasting power of attorney, which means should anything happen to you, they're in charge of dividing up your assets. Say you fall ill and you can't make any decisions, they help you make the right decision. The reason I say this is that having a will is great, but if it's not read by the right individual, things can go wrong. So having a lasting power of attorney is super important. And again, on the internet, you get so many template documents, and I can share it after the call as well, where you assign one person, whether it's your best friend, your younger brother, whoever it may be, just so that your decisions are made in the right framework that you've chosen should anything happen to you. And then lastly, I think everyone's very familiar with life insurance. I think this is an incredible product. You pay small premiums every single month, and should anything happen to you, they give you a lump sum so that your family can survive. Now, the only challenge with life insurance, and this is something that the normal people aren't familiar with, is that there's two different products, a term product and an investment product. But essentially, the simple differentiation is that when it comes to insurance products, you should only take out a product that focuses on one goal. So what I mean by that is, if you're paying a monthly subscription every single month, and the end goal of that policy is to make sure where if you pass, you get a lump sum, that is a good policy. But nowadays, what insurance companies do, they combine it with different types of products. So they'll say, okay, this other product is, you'll also get a lump sum. And should you fall ill, you will also get, they'll cover your expenses. Now, those insurance products are very complicated. You just want to take a simple insurance product that has one goal, whether it's a health insurance product or a life insurance product. That is what you should focus on. Just give me a moment. I'm just going to do some housekeeping. 1 second. There we go. There we go. So that's my only opinion on insurance products. I think they're great. However, I think it's very important to take one that does one thing, not 10 things, not 2 things, not 5 things. Let me try and mute Sophia. Brilliant. There we go. Okay, brilliant. Oh. Okay. Brilliant. I think I've got everybody on mute. Okay, so the goal about so as I mentioned, I spent a lot of time in my career working with big corporations, helping the rich people get rich. And when I moved back to Kenya, I met with Rogito, and I was asking Rogito, how do you invest your savings? How do you make sure you get to your financial goals? And he said, so he's our chief commercial officer, said, Rads, in Kenya, the everyday person doesn't have access to the right tools. And I said, that's super interesting, because in the West, you actually have easy ways in education and right type of guidance to make your money grow. So we set out to learn more about the market, and we learned that in Kenya, in Africa, there's $85 billion sitting in a bank account, and that's a bad thing because of saving is not good. As I mentioned earlier, you need to invest. So it means people are losing money. And the reason was three things. People don't know where to get started because we've not been taught about financial education at school. Secondly, if you've tried to invest in Kenya, there's been misinformation, there's been poor regulatory governance, there's been bad scams, and people have tried investing and they've been burnt. And then lastly, if you wanted to invest, the options in Kenya are very limited. So what Ndovu does is that before I play that, but the way we design the solution is that we provide you digital advice to begin with. So we ask you, a bunch of questions to say, okay, what are your goals? What are you investing for? How much can you save? Okay, based on this information, if you held this portfolio, you would get to your goal. And that gives you digital advice before you even have to worry. Of course, the advice is configured with many years of experience, 40 plus years of experience. So it's the right way to build your portfolio. So I'm going to take out my headphones because last time I did this, I couldn't. Perfect. I've just disconnected them, and then I will just run out. Can you hear me?
So sorry, Rafika, yes, I can hear you. There's a question in the chats before you play. So what are the key factors to consider when evaluating the insurance company to invest with? Yeah.
Brilliant question. So Florence, I think more generally, the big names in the insurance space do a good job. It's the policy it's the policy that you are looking at is the one that makes the difference. So of course, if it's a long-standing insurance company in the industry for a long time, you know they have the right processes in place to make sure your money will get paid out should anything happen to you. So it's just doing your research, seeing if they've been around for a long time, and reading reviews and speaking to a few people and getting referrals. But when it comes to the insurance policy, that's where the difference really comes in. So the insurance policy you want to take out, and you can have multiple insurance policies, is that each policy does one thing. So let's take health insurance as an example. The goal of a health insurance policy is that if anything happened to you and you fell ill, they will cover your expenses. So that has one goal. Life insurance typically has one goal as well. If you pay a monthly premium every single month, should something happen to you, your family will get 10 million shillings. It's clear, it's concise, and there's no confusion. What has historically happened in the insurance market is when you combine the two, when it comes to paying out the policy, insurance companies can say, okay, well, this has happened and this isn't right. So getting that money can be a lot longer, and it's quite stressful on your family to go and fight or like negotiate and get the right deal. So my advice is, instead of having one policy with multiple things, go in there, understand the policy terms. And if you want, take out 3 policies that all have one end goal. I hope that answers your question, Florence. Adam also has a question. What are some of the available investment vehicles in Kenya that are not capital intensive with no hidden or underlying costs? Again, not the traditional money market, real estate, etc. Adam, great question. So in Kenya, okay, so obviously real estate can be very capital intensive. And also nowadays there are real estate funds that you can invest like 2,000 shillings and still get access to real estate. But the key things that are available in Kenya and now is that Ndovu is bringing global funds to Kenya. So we're regulated by the CMA, and when you come onto our platform, if you wanted to invest in technology globally, we offer, this is one example, we offer you a technology fund that has the likes of Microsoft, Google, Apple, and the likes. And the idea is that because we're promoting responsible investing, we are not giving the option to buy one stock to begin with, because it's really hard for anybody who's not a financial expert to monitor it. But if you bought the technology index, if, for example, Apple didn't do well over a period, the other companies will do well, and you won't see that much of a loss in value of your investment. But on the same time, if one year Apple did incredibly well, you wouldn't see that significant upside. So again, we really focus on building the long-term portfolio, which is building small amounts of money and investments over a period of time, and it's a long-term plan. And that's how we do it. So you do have access to global markets now, and any other investments. So no hidden costs and underlying costs. So I personally think that in Kenya, the money market fund is a good option to invest in. But again, there's costs. But if you know the costs up front, it's okay. I also feel that the government bonds and some of the corporate bonds are interesting to invest in. But I personally wouldn't invest, and this is my opinion. Again, it's not financial advice. It's just my opinion. I would not invest in the local equity market because the market is very heavily weighted by 4 companies that are doing really well. And with the government, so another thing to look out for when it comes to investments is which investments are tax-free. So normally the money market fund charges you withholding tax of 15%. But if you were to buy a government bond, depending on the bond that you buy, sometimes there's no withholding tax. And if there is, it's lower, it's normally 10%. So it's just really understanding the market a bit better. On Ndovu will really help you figure out what the right options are for yourself. Yeah, I'd encourage you to go onto the website and check out what we're doing. And it will give you a bit more insights on the different types of assets. Another thing that we've done is in Kenya, there's 22 fund managers. We've chosen not to work with all 22 because we don't think they necessarily are doing what they say in the tin. They might have underlying hidden costs, like you mentioned, Adam. So we've only chosen to work with a few, and there's a few more that we're onboarding. But the idea really would be to invest both locally and globally, so you have a balanced portfolio when it comes to regions as well as risk. And we're going to a bit more into the investment section, but we'll be covering more of this stuff in the next session. Adam, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it actually does. Then I have a follow-up question. Yes. On your platform, is it possible to access like the global markets, for example, if I want to invest in LSE or NASDAQ?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great, thanks.
Perfect. So I'll hit play. Hopefully the sound works. I sometimes have challenges with this.
Is your money asleep? Your money is losing value every day. Are you working for money or is it working for you? Hopefully both. Is it asleep in a savings account, an M-Pesa account, or under your mattress? You know you should be investing your money. Why aren't you? Because it's complicated, expensive, and time-consuming. Introducing Ndovu. Using state-of-the-art algorithms based on Nobel Prize-winning research, Ndovu automatically builds you a custom diversified portfolio at a fraction of the cost of traditional advisors. Simply answer a few questions so we can get to know you better, and we'll recommend a portfolio that fits your investing goals. Open your very own Ndovu account, and you can easily monitor and manage all your investments through the dashboard or leave it on cruise control. Ndovu is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority. Your money is held independently and securely in a top-tier custodian bank. Ndovu makes use of advanced encryption and blockchain, so your account stays safe at all times. Ndovu, work your money.
So that was a short description of what we do in very simple terms. Probably described it better than I did, but
is your money asleep?
Sorry, perfect. Just conscious of time, I'm not going to go into the rest of the slides. We're going to have another session with you on investments. That's going to be a little bit more action driven on like the different types of investments they are. And so before we leave, I'd just like to see if there's any other questions and any feedback. Feel free to put it in the chat. Yes, I'll just pause there to give people a bit of time. Was there any particular section that wasn't clear that maybe perhaps we can go through?
Adams is telling you this has been great. He's thanking you. Any question whatsoever from anyone? I see someone.
Sorry. So it's not a question, but it's if someone wanted to get like proof of the regulation by CMA and the authority to transact the way you're doing? Is it possible? Because of late, for example, if you look at the site on case, it was really out of hand. So like how do you give your customers assurances that such will not happen?
So we have so a couple of things. So firstly, to answer your question, if you went on to the CMA Capital Markets Authority website, they have it, and Ro, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding they have a full list of the companies that are regulated. So that at least you know what is regulated. Now, the challenge with Citon was that Citon was regulated, but some of their products weren't regulated. So that is the challenging part. So they weren't, it was a bit of a mixed one. They were regulated for certain products, but the product that wasn't doing well wasn't regulated. So again, my recommendation is to always do your research when using a third-party provider. Also, if you are looking to use Ndovu, I think it's very important as an individual to also ask a few friends who've used it. The second thing that we have done in terms of the way it works is when, Adam, you come onto our platform and say you invested 1,000 shillings, that 1,000 shillings does not sit within Ndovu. Once it gets invested, it goes and sits in a custodian account. Our custodian is KCB. They're also regulated by the CBK. And say in a bad event, something happened to Ndovu, the regulator and CBK will get together and say, Adam, we have investment of yours that's 1,000 bob. What would you like to do with it? In the West, they give you an option whether you want to move it to another provider, but I believe in Kenya, they just give you the money back. But the everyday Kenyan doesn't know that exists. That the money is always held separate from the company, and the money sits in a separate account for the user. And that's obviously, if you're in the industry, you understand. You can even get in touch with the custodian directly, and they have to give you your money back. But because we just generally not aware that that's an option, people end up thinking they've lost their money. So I think the best thing, so that's how we've kept the safety of our customers' money safe. And lastly, we don't work with anybody that we think will not be around for a long time. We also do our own independent checks on entities, just to make sure that our customers' money is safe at all times, because for us, that would be the worst thing. We're here to help people create wealth, not lose money. And yeah, that's essentially what I would recommend that you do.
Really, thank you.
Brilliant. I can see I'm great everyone found the session very informative. I love the Ndovu Niku. There's a very trending song right now. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys next week at the investment webinar. And please feel free to give Frida any feedback, any improvement points. We'd love to hear from you guys. And if you have any questions that arise later, these are our contact details. Just get in touch with us or cascade them through Wilfrida.
Yes, sorry, I got one directly on my chat. Do you have like templates to help people break down the paying off the debt and save? Yes. Yeah.
Just to add on templates to help people calculate their maybe future earnings if they were to invest with you.
Yeah, sure.
We share them in advance before we.
Sorry, repeat that again.
Could you share them in advance?
Yes, I can. Yes.
That'll be great.
Yeah, so any templates that can help either people break down their debts, know how to segregate their savings. Yes.
Perfect. And even budgeting tools. I can send all of that after this call. Brilliant.
Okay.
Right. So much, very much appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you guys same time next week on Friday.
Thank you.